In 2011, the city of Austin passed a resolution to reduce landfill waste within the city by 90% in an effort to mitigate the impact of climate change while creating new jobs by 2040. A major part of the plan called upon Austin's waste management system, Austin Resource Recovery, to aggressively expand its reach to include citywide composting, empowering private citizens and local businesses to contribute to reducing landfill waste. Austin is known for a sort of cowboy entrepreneur mentality. This idea that an individual can set out on their own in the Wild West, that is, the Texas economy, and make something that benefits both themselves and future generations. It's a city that encourages pulling yourself up by your bootstraps and making your own path.
My world at some point was indoors, under LED or neon lighting, coming home at 4 a.m, slowly watching our habitat, our wildlife degrade, and felt like I might be part of the problem. And that was the turning point for me.
The city of Austin passed a zero waste goal or ordinance, if you will. The education component was just, real passion for me. It's all creation. And so how can I be a part of that and make it better?
We had a lawn and garden business as the family. And so about 10, my father said, "Oh, you're 10. It's time for you to have your own business." I go, "Okay, sure, Dad." I was actually looking at some scripture, and there was a scripture in Genesis where it talks about taking care of the earth. And it just really struck me of like, oh, that's stewardship. It's like, I'm blessed to bless, right? And so that was really significant for me.
I went on a walkabout and started to study anything from neurology, cardiology, sociology, anthropologists, Buddhist monks, Baptist priests, to find out what the essence was of the human being. And there was one thing that connected us all from each of these people that I studied under, and it was love. And so at that point, I said, okay, that's what we need to put back into corporate America, and that's how Joyology came to be. Tito and I were talking about 6 years ago, and we were talking about the employees. And Tito is very wrapped up in his employees and their lives, and he wanted to make sure that his employees live healthier, longer lives. We looked around and we said, my goodness, our distillery is in a food desert. Let's plant a garden. Let's feed our employees.
I did environmental studies in college, and out of college, I actually joined a pipeline opposition campaign to stop the Keystone XL pipeline. I found the food forest when I first moved to Austin and saw it as a way to balance my life between trying to stop things that are causing the climate crisis and causing environmental harms, and to balance that out with things that are actually building solutions and beauty in the world.
I grew up on a farm in Illinois, and so I got a pretty strong visceral experience of being around food that came from the ground all the time. I would say the most beautiful and impactful times on the farm were with my family in community. There's this very magical moment every summer where we would all harvest sweet corn from the edge of my grandfather's field together. And I just have such an amazing memory from being around my family and it being so fun and having delicious food and just really sharing those experiences together.
Growing up as a child, there were different points in my life where we definitely were using and experiencing local foods. I grew up in South Texas on the border of Mexico and Texas, and there was tons of citrus farms. And so going and getting fresh citrus, eating, the amazing grapefruits that South Texas is known for and other citrus was so incredible. It wasn't until later on in my career when I was learning more about food and learning more about the importance in utilizing local foods and farm fresh foods that I started to make that shift into doing so.
My fiance at the time and I stayed in the earth ships near Taos, and I totally fell in love with that concept and that culture, these regenerative systems and this living off the grid, minimizing your waste, felt really good to me. And I kind of went back to working in hospitality and really got kind of upset at how much waste, how wasteful the industry is. So Cosmic was the genesis of that kind of conflict. So what we've done here is we've created this space that we think is beautiful to be in and be around, but also without getting too preachy or too intense about it, we have created a lot of systems here that give back to habitat and minimize our waste. A new garden is unestablished, doesn't have any infrastructure. It's gonna struggle. It doesn't know how to feed itself. Once it's established, a few seasons in, then it starts to develop those natural defenses against predators, insects, fungi, diseases, that kind of stuff. One of the techniques we've learned to expedite that process, to go from infancy to established, is to really dump in a lot of organic nutrients via compost.
I liked working with my hands, and I saw the value of compost, and there was a demand for good quality stuff at a reasonable price. So I started talking to some chain stores, and they go, "Hey, will you do this?" And I said, "Yeah." And so we turned our little yard trimming compost facility into a full-fledged, food waste, recycling, which we didn't really know much about. There weren't a whole lot of people doing anything in that way. So I kind of sold it and then built the business, is how I did it.
Now, if you think of the soil as the skin of the earth, just like the skin on our hand, if we hurt it or burn it or something, we put an ointment on it to heal it. It's the same with the soil. I mean, we damage it by walking on it, overusing it, putting chemicals on it. And so when you put that compost back on, it's like that ointment on that skin of the earth. It heals it back. Compost reduces your irrigation needs, your watering, so you save money on your water bill. Can actually pull carbon from the air and affix it back to the soil. It heals the soil. They've done several studies, different places across the globe, where the soil quality has been horrid and there's been erosion and nothing will grow. And they go in and they put compost, and all of a sudden the native plants start growing again. The soil health starts building back up. So environment would be completely different. It would be a game changer.
Just trying to eliminate waste out of your stream is great. So just you can figure out a way to get paper incorporated into your compost pile where normally you'd be sending it to a recycler. There's just small steps you can do where it's simplify and use these streams that just exist in modern life and put them to use.
The city of Austin began an impact where if a restaurant was a certain number of square footage, or you had a food area, even a cafe at a place, then you had to compost your organic waste, and then they would phase that in. So they would start 25,000 square feet till over a number of years it went down to any food permitted place. And then about the same time they decided to do a pilot of 14,000 homes with a bin at the curb. Very quickly, within 5 to 6 years, it's the whole city. And the Austin Resource Recovery did a phenomenal job of educating. And that was the biggest hurdle, was educating people what could go in that bin.
It could be as simple as throwing your scraps out the back door into a small pile and throwing some leaves over it every once in a while. You don't even need a compost bin necessarily to keep those scraps out of the trash.
Composting and sustainable land use empowers individuals and organizations alike to grow healthy, organic produce that doesn't need to be boxed, shipped, or frozen to be consumed. This organic produce not only fuels human bodies, it also fuels the ecosystems that clean our air and soil, further reducing the waste that makes it into landfills.
A food forest basically creates an ecosystem of plants and animals, but in a way that also serves humans. So it creates a way that we can use land to increase biodiversity and food access for free. It helps build a soil ecosystem and an above-ground ecosystem that protects biodiversity, helps sequester carbon, helps sequester water and put it back into our aquifers.
This particular food forest is harvesting rainwater with a berm and swale system. So storm water events, we're slowing that water on the landscape, spreading it out across the landscape and allowing it to soak in, charging the groundwater.
It also creates microclimates, so it's cooler in the food forest than in open parks by a few degrees.
We prioritize the health of our soil. We wanted the farm to be right next door to the distillery, and the state of Texas has a map of reports on soil all over the state. This is designated as not farmable land. So we had an uphill battle from the start. It's really heavy clay. We have, I think, a 30% incline on this property, so there's a lot of potential for erosion. And we have a lot of wind. So we've worked a lot against a lot of things that you wouldn't necessarily select for if you were picking out where to have a farm.
This land was just a vacant lot, and the dirt was super hard. And instead of, building some other structure out here, we decided to care for the land. It's a regenerative farm. We're regenerating the soil. So that alone right there is helping the environment.
We live next to a low-income and disabled housing for seniors, the Rebecca Baines Johnson Center. And we've had residents tell us, this is my sanctuary, that they come and sit in the park, and to be able to just have a cool, shady place to look at the birds or look at the flowers provides a lot of psychological health benefits. So it creates the experience of being in a wild space in the middle of an urban center.
It's a place where people meet regularly for nourishment, for human connection. And when we feel supported in community, we have far less stress in our life. All the individuals that have supported this food forest have benefited from that.
We have 7 full-time farmers that are managing our 14 acres farm. And so 2 days a week, we grow this food and take the food 2 days a week over to the distillery where we have a farmer's market. And so the employees are allowed to come in and bag the groceries, not just for them, but take home to their families. And so in addition to the food going to the distillery for them to take home, we also have a commissary with 3 full-time chefs that are able to cook this clean, fresh food for them. And it's no cost to the employees.
The advantages of choosing local produce over grocery store produce, there's so many. Flavor and texture of the products are just so much better when they're grown outside. Locally, they are fresher, more freshly harvested. Mass scale production of vegetables means that you're getting a variety. It's not necessarily been bred for flavor and texture. It's bred to travel a long distance and to be stored well. So I think we forget that those really perfect vegetables that we see in the grocery store aren't necessarily the most delicious. They just might look the best.
As a chef and as someone who creates delicious dishes, the most important thing or the most impactful thing I can say to you is your food is going to taste better. When you're using local foods and you're working within seasonality, not only does it have so much more flavor and better textures, but it actually is more harmonious with your body and your palate. So if your goal is to create the most beautiful, most delicious dishes and you're not using local products, you're missing a huge margin of creating a delicious, amazing dish.
I think the farm has affected the employees in a number of ways. One, it's changed the relationship of food with them, meaning they get to now learn from our farmers what the produce means with health attributes. So they're really looking at food differently. I think it's also changed it for convenience. We are in a food desert. They're able to have, fresh vegetables twice a week so that they don't have to go outside to find food in this food desert. But I think convenience, they don't have to shop as much for their own vegetables, as well as cost. With the inflation today, vegetables are really on the rise. And our vegetables are fresh, nutrient packed, and our vegetables last much longer than the vegetables you would buy in the grocery stores.
I think kind of the lowest hanging fruit or the easiest way to make impact on your dining room table really is just visiting your local farmers markets. Shopping at a farmers market, connecting with the local farmer, connecting with whatever the local food producers are, is a very, very easy way to do so. And if you do not have that opportunity, even going to the grocery store, you'll often find local ingredients that are grown within 30, 40 miles of that door.
If you can just replace one thing that you would buy at the grocery store with something you can grow, you're gonna get excited about that. It's going to be more flavorful, it's going to be fresher, more nutrient rich, and that's going to get you excited to do more.
No matter how much property or land you have, it is so easy to grow something. So to really make impact for generation after generation, if you're showing your family and your children that you can put something in the soil to grow, so that you can then enjoy that in your household, on your table, not only is it fun and super educational, but it also has a lasting impact.
Small choices can lead to bigger impact.
Reducing landfill waste by 90% is a big goal, and it doesn't happen overnight. To get there, Austinites are making individual shifts that are inspiring larger community projects, making a shift in the city landscape.
The food forest started when there was a master planning process with the city after the Holly Shores power plant was shut down, which was a 16-year community organizing effort to close that power plant in the middle of their neighborhood. And then that kicked off a planning project for this area of parkland. So members of the community got together and talked about what they wanted to see in the park, and the food forest and the notion of edible and medicinal landscaping on public parkland was identified by the Austin community. I've been involved 8 years, and I help with organizing our volunteer structure and fundraising, grant management, things like that. The average volunteer comes and helps to garden, helps put in new plants or weed out plants. But basically volunteers help us to take care of the ecosystem here.
We learned so much at our farm here at 14 acres, and we saw the benefits on our employees for the farm that we decided, let's take this on the road. And so we looked at all of the United States and started to partner with existing gardens, and we have taken this concept to areas that may not have access to fresh food. And we have built over now, we're on our 150th garden throughout America that we're building. So one belief, block to block, is, we like to think that we do have an impact and we really are making this world a little bit better than we found it. And we like to look at it as we're making it better one block at a time. And we're doing that through farming and gardening.
The best advice I can ever give anyone is to show up at your farmer's market and get to know your farmers personally. The best asset that you have to getting access to food is to actually know who's growing your food and who's raising your food. We have to rebuild those pathways and those connections and those relationships between our producers and our buyers. When you're so passionate about your work and you really believe in it, you can't really do anything else. We just love food, we love restaurants, we love farmers, we love all of it so much, and we just want to see it be its best possible version of itself.
We want to grow as a place for the green economy and have more living wage jobs for people to teach here, to help steward the land and bring that to the wider community. So that's kind of what we're building towards.
I would love to learn more about other companies that are doing farms so that we could collaborate and share our learnings. And so I think moving forward is just rethinking the way we care for our people.
Sometimes people overcomplicate things. If I really thought about it, I probably never would have did my business because it's so complicated. But you just, hey, you got the why, it's important. We're going to just, take a step and try some different things and learn from it. If you really appreciate nature, and you'll want to do things to care for it.
I've watched people in this realm, this sustainability realm, burn out because they try to do too much, and it can get daunting, and it's a lot of work, and it's expensive, it can be. So try to find that low-hanging fruit. And that could be habitat creation, could be composting, could be biological ponds. Don't try to be perfect, and find what's fun for you and build on that.
It all starts with being grateful for what we've been given and stewarding it well. And you think, oh, well, I can only do this. Well, do the one little thing. If everybody did one little thing, if everybody picked up one little piece of trash, if everybody recycle one bottle or composted one eggshell, little by little, it adds up.